You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tudor Francu with Stellar Success Podcast. We have a new episode and a great guest, Stephanie Dorwart. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here today, Dr. Francu.
Absolutely. Stephanie, how is it to be a CEO?
How is it to be a CEO? That is a phenomenal question. When I think about being a CEO or, being a leader in general, it's really about influencing others. So I really look at the fact that as a CEO, as a leader, you can influence others and empower them to make changes within this world. So it's really about leadership and, leveraging your ability to influence and make an impact.
Yeah, it's the visionary role, right, in a company.
100%. And I always say that a good CEO always has a great operator behind them. So visionaries always have to have the operations or the chief operating officer to be successful.
Right. Okay, so let's go back a little bit and tell me, what do you think success means for a CEO?
So it's hard for me to answer that question with just thinking about, success for a CEO. So I'm probably going to answer the question more general.
Absolutely.
To me, at its core, success is really about waking up happy. And, in order to enjoy life, you have to be happy. And with any CEO, that's really about building meaningful relationships. So making connections that truly matter. And when you're thinking about that, as I mentioned earlier, success is also about leaving that impact. So CEOs, I think at their root, often want to leave a lasting legacy. They often want to build an organization that's excellent. So oftentimes are, pursuing excellence. So success is really about helping their organization, helping themselves, helping their leaders, helping their employees sustain positive results, sustain positive improvement, and make a difference in their community, in their hospital, in their healthcare organization, their company. And in order to do that, you have to be happy. So if you're negative, if you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to be able to be successful. So it all goes back to when you wake up in the morning, do you like what you're doing? And if you're happy, you can be successful. So ultimately, it's about doing what you love with people that make a difference and people that you love.
That's a great definition. So let's go back and tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you start? What made you choose this path? And where are you now?
So my journey's probably a little bit different than the traditional journey. As a child, like many, individuals who go into healthcare, I had the stethoscope around my neck and I always would go around and, take the heartbeat of my relatives and wanted to be the doctor. But I was a little bit afraid of medical school and the fact it was going to be a 12-year commitment, 16-year commitment. But I also was very passionate about mathematics and statistics and numbers. So ultimately, I ended up getting a degree in mathematics and statistics. And I taught at a community high school in my hometown for a little bit under a decade until I got the healthcare bug back again. And I realized that I really wanted to be able to marry my passion for healthcare with my passion for numbers, and went back and got my master's in healthcare administration and started working for a hospital outside of Pittsburgh. It was very early on in that career that I started to notice that there were some gaps, inefficiencies in operations and productivity and in knowledge levels, and really started to focus in on where I am now, which ultimately is educating, empowering, and elevating leaders within healthcare and helping them to become as efficient as possible, but in a way that's going to deliver meaningful care. So goal is always to make sure that you're making the biggest impact on the patients, but doing it in a way that's going to prevent burnout of the clinicians, doing it in a way that's going to have the greatest patient outcomes, doing it in a way that makes sure that you're providing the lowest possible quality of care in a way that, is meaningful. So evolution really started out in mathematics, got the bug for healthcare back again, went back and got my master's of healthcare administration, started working for a hospital, and then I got the entrepreneurial bug and decided to, go out on my own in consulting.
Interesting. So let me ask you, what do you think is the most common thing that people don't know about your job in healthcare?
I would say that with my job in healthcare, focused in consulting and the fact that we primarily work with hospitals and healthcare organizations to improve productivity and efficiency, the one thing most people don't understand about my job in healthcare and what I work with our clients to do is that productivity ultimately is going to be one of the main things that's going to produce positive results for a hospital. And unfortunately, many times, you're I'm sure many listeners right now, when you think about productivity, the first thing that pops into your mind is layoffs. And why is that? It's because typically when we hear about productivity, we hear about workforce optimization, we think about the headlines and layoffs. But unfortunately, people don't realize that when productivity is used correctly, organizations should never have to have layoffs, because ultimately productivity produces positive results by opening up access. It produces positive results by focusing on reducing length of stays. It produces positive results by focusing on making an environment for clinicians and providers that doesn't burn them out. A lot of times we get into this mind, 15 minutes, patients are coming in, and there's not even room to breathe. And people think of that as productivity, but it can also be changing that template so that you have breaks in the day, changing that template so that you're automating tasks to make it easier for the providers to document. So what people don't understand about my job is productivity will produce positive results, but you have to allow it to do that.
Yeah. It's interesting how you transition from being basically working for a hospital to being an entrepreneur in that same field. What do you think the most important mindset change was for you to make that transition?
I think the most important mindset change to make the transition to an entrepreneur is that you really need to like the chase a little bit. So, one of the biggest, transitions was mindset, because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you're now responsible directly for the livelihood of individuals. So my mindset had to change a lot. And the biggest shift that I had to make is really focusing on a lot of your schedule and your own accountability for your tasks and what you're doing day in and day out. And an understanding that, at the end of the day, everything stops with you. So when you're in a bigger organization, a lot of times you have a larger team behind you. And when you break out into entrepreneurial in the beginning part of it, a lot of times you now are serving so many different roles. So the biggest mindset was that accountability and the fact that you have to learn all those different tasks, and ultimately that everything starts and ends with you. And, it's your reputation, it's, your influence, it's your product, it's, your team, but you can make a bigger impact being an entrepreneur whenever you're in business by just focusing on those end results.
Yeah, another thing that I hear a lot from my colleagues in this field is that, especially the ones that are still working in a hospital. I'm not, but I was for a while. Is that, we all have this impression that these mammoth of the hospital, right, administration, it's somewhere in the clouds, and it's like a little voice, very sound voice from above that tells you what to do. And when they don't know what to do, they call someone like you or a company like you, a consultant, who tells them what to do or tells them what they think they should do. What do you think is the most important thing a hospital should do to run more efficient?
The most important thing a hospital should do to
From
run
your experience.
more efficient, from my experience. And that's a really, I'd say low question, because every single hospital is a little bit different. But
Yeah.
the most important thing to run more efficient is leadership. You mentioned that there's an opinion of, clinicians that you talk to, colleagues of yours that are still in the hospital, that there are directives coming down from above of this behemoth and things to do. And oftentimes they don't know where that's coming from. And that causes, organizations to reach out to consultants like myself. But one of the things that we really focus on is coaching and mentoring and working with senior leadership teams to be more effective so that they can influence efficiency. And a lot of times that comes by understand your current performance. So one of the things are, where are you currently operating? What are your key performance indicators? What are your metrics? How do you compare against other similar organizations in all accounts? And understand the data starting out. Where are you? And a lot of organizations and hospitals, you'd be surprised, they don't really even understand that. And once you know where you are, don't have an emotional reaction to it. A lot of times we get emotional about data. We get emotional about the benchmarks. We get emotional about the information. But you have to look at data as it's simply information. And it's what you do with that information as the leader of the hospital that makes the difference, and take a step forward. So the most important thing, and to directly answer your question, and we use a 3A approach to productivity and efficiency, is you have to act. The most important thing to do in healthcare to improve efficiency is make decisions, act, do something differently, change. Because a lot of times, Tudor, we see organizations and they have meeting after meeting after meeting. They talk about the same thing for 6 months, for 12 months, and they're still having the exact same conversations. And at the end of the day, they haven't done anything to improve the length of stay. They haven't done anything to, reduce the tardiness of, first case start times. They haven't done anything to cut down on, the patients that are not showing up for appointments. So in order to change and improve efficiency, you have to act and you have to make decisions. And to do that, you have to lead with integrity, lead with convictions, and understand that not every decision is going to always be correct, but you can pivot and change. And you improve efficiency by slow and steady changes over time. And one of the biggest mistakes organizations make is they try to do too much all at once. They might call a consultant like Altius and, put together the large plan. And at the end of it, there are 45 action steps to take. And what we always work with our clients on, change one or two things at a time. Because if you're not doing that, number one, the organization's going to get overwhelmed. Number two, you're not going to understand what actually made the difference. So only pull one or two levers in the department at a time, and that's going to have dramatic impacts.
Yeah.
So act. That is the number one way to become more efficient.
Yeah. Well, obviously very few people learn from success. And I think this is one of the things that many want to have. They want to have success, but they don't learn much from it. But we all learn from failures and missteps and setbacks. Do you have an example in your life that something didn't go your way and you learned a lot from it and it made you better?
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of a lot of examples in my life where things did not necessarily go the way I had intended or gone the way I wanted, and it made me better as a consultant, it made me better as a leader. And one comes to mind, with a particular example of an organization where we were called in to help them. They were, losing roughly $2.5 million per month. So it was, a very, very dire situation for the organization. And it was earlier on in my consulting career, and I can recall, working with them on the plan and the productivity plan and, the targets. And we tried to do too much too quickly, which led to a lot of negativity towards the project, which slowed down what we were able to do in the beginning. So there was a lot of pushback on the benchmarks, a lot of pushback on the information. Where did the data come from? This information isn't, these hospitals are not like us. And so ultimately what that taught me is I had to, number one, share the information in a way that actually resonated with the people on the other side of the table. Sometimes we want to get our point across so much that we don't consider the person that we're communicating with and what we need to do. So I was talking up here, Tudor, and their level of knowledge was down here, with the individual managers on the nursing units, and what I learned was that by closing that gap and meeting leaders where they are and understanding their knowledge level, you can move a lot quicker. And it humbled me, quite honestly, because I thought I had the answers at that particular point in time to really move that organization faster than what we actually did. And it did cost us about 3 months, but ultimately we still got them to a positive operating margin. And ultimately they ended up, being able to keep their doors open because they were months from closing. So it was a great experience, but it also humbled me, and I had to completely rethink everything.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said. One follow-up question that I want to have here is that the fact that making an organization like that more efficient, you need to work with people, and you don't choose who you work with. You have to work with what you have, in other words, with what kind of people you have there. And the first reason the organization is not efficient is most likely because of the people that are there. So my question is your approach to make things more efficient educating the people you already have or changing the people to make things better?
Yeah. Our approach is educating the people and changing the people that we already have. So to answer the question directly, it's not focused on changing the people out. So we're not going to change the bodies. We want to turn, the team that's already there into a better team. We want to turn the individual people into better directors, into better managers, into better leaders. So ultimately, we change the people that are actually at the organization without changing the bodies. So we work to educate and elevate the individuals and ultimately focus on making them the CEO, the visionary of their individual department, making them the CFO, the person that understands all the numbers of their individual department, and ultimately the change agent of their area. So we work with them to put together strategic plans, if you will, of their goals, what they're working to achieve, the leader that they want to be, determining their traits. So we influence the productivity of the overall hospital by focusing on each department leader and each manager in each area and making them better. And so changing them by educating, elevating, developing their skills, turning them into an excellent leader, which ultimately then really changes the hospital into a culture of excellence. You can change the operating margin of any hospital healthcare organization by starting with each individual leader, igniting their passion for patient care, igniting their passion for making a difference, and then helping them to really become the visionary of the radiology department, the visionary of the physical therapy department, and making them passionate about them and running each and every one of their departments like the entrepreneur, like the individual CEO and CFO. And that's ultimately how we change the hospital culture.
I see. Yeah, that's a great approach. Going back to you as an entrepreneur, obviously, you are an individual consultant now, correct?
Correct.
And one of the main, I would say, concerns for someone like you, being, their own company, so to speak, is how do you strategize and plan for your retirement and for your burnout, I would say. So do you have any kind of strategies in mind that you as an individual entrepreneur can advise someone or, have something in place for yourself in terms of investments, savings, whatever you think it's necessary for you to have the funds necessary for you to retire? Because this is a tough world. This is a tough world to be a single entrepreneur, a single man company. And I know this by myself too. And, you need to strategize, you need to plan accordingly, and you need to have some kind of principles in mind to guide you. What are yours?
Yes. Well, of course, as, entrepreneur, and it's not technically a single person company, so I do have a team. But I think to answer the question, plan for retirement is you have to have multiple income streams that you're looking at. So, number one, making sure that you're investing in whatever investments they are, 401ks, stock market investments, is one stream. Make sure you have dividends that are coming in. In my case, ultimately, I'm also looking at other companies that one day I may invest in, or companies that we might be able, because then that's a way to actually continue that. Can sell your own company. Real estate is always a great investment, in making sure that you have real estate, things. I have a lot of colleagues that work, in their own business and things. And one of the things that they're focusing on is real estate assets. They're looking at, can they buy rental properties? Can they, have Airbnbs? And I see that becoming more and more common, even with, physician providers that, we work with, and, others. So multiple streams of income, whether it's, securing businesses, investments, real estate, and then making sure you're setting yourself up so that you do have those and plan so far earlier than you need to for sure. So if I can give any message to maybe some of your younger audience members that are in here, if they're their 20s, 30s, start early. If I could go back in time and speak to my 22-year-old self, I would say that, probably should have been thinking about retirement then. And it will set you up so much better for the future.
Yeah, it's such a big difference between start saving in the 20s and in the 30s. It's probably double the amount, I would say,
Yes.
in the retirement phase. But yeah, the thing is that not too many people are thinking about retirement when they're starting over or in the 20s. They want to accumulate wealth very rapidly. They want to spend very rapidly on things that, it matters to them. But in the big scheme of things, life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you need to kind of plan ahead accordingly.
Yes.
What you mentioned some advice for yourself when you were younger. If you know what you know right now, and your experience in this field, what would you advise someone who actually wants to do the same thing you're doing right now?
I would advise them in two areas. Number one, be a lifelong learner and absorb all of the information that you possibly can from all of the places that you can. Insert yourself into a variety of different meetings within your organization, expose yourself to different committees and different mentors and coaches, and then get your hands on all the information that you possibly can. Read books, attend conferences, put yourself in the room, sit at a bigger table, expose yourself to people that are where you want to go, ask them the questions. Don't be afraid to go out of there. So number one, be a lifelong learner, grow as much as you can, gather as much knowledge as you can, as early as you can. So put yourself at the table, get in the room, get to the conferences, read the books. Regarding the second, join professional organizations and build as large of a network as you possibly can. So, if you're in healthcare, I assume the majority of your audience is in healthcare, but it's possible that they're not. They might be in others. So whatever industry you're in, join the professional organizations. If you're interested in finance, join the Healthcare Financial Management Association, HFMA. If you want to become a leader in healthcare, join the American College of Healthcare Executives. If you want to be a consultant, join some type of consulting organization. And then make as many contacts as you can, because it's one of those statements that's oversaid, but your network will become your net worth. And I can look at my, career in a lot of different ways and trace the people that I met back that really take me to where I am today. And so you never know when the next contact is going to be the one thing that makes and breaks you. So if you want to get into consulting and business, learn as much as you can, grow as much as you can, get as much knowledge through as many different experiences, and then build out the best network that you can so that you have mentors and coaches.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think people need to understand that there are very, very few things in life that you can do by yourself. But there are a lot of good things in life you can do as a team. And having a network and know people, it's essential. A lot of countries I've been to in my travels, they all have the saying, I know someone. I know someone to do this thing. I know someone to do that thing. So it's very important, like you said, to have connections, relationships, professional connections, and ultimately to be very personal in your relationships with even with professionals, because ultimately we're all humans and we all have this touch that we can get to someone personally and create a more sustainable relationship with them.
Exactly.
What's coming up for you this year? What are you excited about? What projects do you have in mind? Where do you want to grow?
Yeah, so what I'm excited about this year, especially with the work that I'm doing, is leadership journeys and, a lot of different components that we're putting together with leadership retreats for our productivity and workforce optimization clients. So I'm really excited about being able to launch that, because we can take, the scary word of productivity and really get this ripple effect by leadership journeys. And we do a lot of fun activities, without going into a lot of details, where we play Jenga and other things, but it's a lot of excitement, for our teams. And I'm excited to really build upon that, because it's a relatively newer program, and be able to launch that for more of our clients. And then ultimately, what I'm passionate about is keeping the doors of community hospitals open. There are so many rural hospitals and so many communities that are in danger because their hospitals are struggling. And I'm just excited about, helping them thrive and making a difference and keeping their doors open.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Well, Stephanie, how can somebody get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing and maybe get your advice?
Great. A lot of ways to get in touch with me. Number one, you can follow me personally, Stephanie Dorwart, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. But even better, you can look at Altius, Altius Healthcare Consulting Group. And so our website's altiushcg.com, and find our information there and follow us on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks for coming over. I hope everybody can learn from you. There's a lot to learn in healthcare administration in general, and we're not born leaders. We need to learn how to be leaders.
Yes,
thank you very much.
You're welcome. And everyone has a leader within them.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.